So today I'm at the Leonidas Cemetery in Leonidas, Michigan. And you're probably wondering why I chose this cemetery. Well, it's got some very fascinating pioneer history. It's got some amazing individuals that are buried here as well from later periods of time. And it also is the final resting place of one of the Harry Potter film franchise. Yes, one of the cast members is buried here. He's also well known in another film franchise from the 1990s. But if I said that franchise, you'd probably guess which one I'm talking about, and maybe even guess who the character was. So you'll have to watch to the end of this video to find out who I'm talking about. So come along and join me. Let's explore some history. Leonidas is a small village that was originally formed in 1831 by settlers from New York. A mill was formed on the Nottawa Creek by James and Robert Cohen in 1832. Not only did they produce flour and grain, but they also built arks, boats, and rafts to ship their goods downriver to Chicago. The area was given a post office in 1836 named Fort Pleasant, the name coming from an old fort ruins that were excavated nearby. Finally, in 1846, the village was platted and renamed Leonidas. It was given the name by an attorney named Niles Smith after the ancient king of Sparta, Leonidas. For many years, I referred to the village as Leonidas, as that is the name of the Greek warrior. However, I was corrected by a local many years ago telling me that they pronounce the name Leonidas. So I suppose both are correct depending on whom you speak with. To be safe, I use what I was told as the local pronunciation in this video. But hey, let me know in the comments which way you think it should be pronounced. As far as the cemetery is concerned, this small rural village never seemed to have published its own newspaper, so there's limited print record on most of the older graves here. However, there was some information in surrounding regional newspapers, and also some detailed notes I found on findagrave.com from other researchers and some from family members. So I was able to piece together some interesting stories, so let's start exploring. The first and most prominent monument near the main entrance that will catch your attention when you arrive at the cemetery, or perhaps you'll notice it when driving by, it's not a grave marker at all. It's a statue honoring men from Leonidas that served in the Civil War. I couldn't find the exact year the statue was erected, but the inscription reads, "In honor of the brave men who from Leonidas bore some loyal part in the Great Civil War, 1861 to 1866. It's an impressive statue that stands as a great tribute to those who served. In fact, I found out about this cemetery because I drove by it, and I'd never driven by this one before, and that statue caught my attention, so I began to research it. So let's talk about some of those Civil War veterans this statue honors. Corporal Jonas Barker enlisted in Burr Oak, Michigan on April 24th, 1861, and served in the 11th Michigan Infantry. He was taken as a prisoner on July 21st, 1861 at Bull Run, Virginia, and he spent almost a full year as a prisoner of war until he was discharged in May of 1862. 2 years later, in February of 1864, he re-enlisted and was promoted to corporal in August of 1865. He served honorably until his discharge at the end of the war in 1865. After the war, he worked as a stonemason in the area until his death in 1914 at the age of 75. Felix Cornelius Balderi was born in the Philippines in 1842. At the age of 16, he joined the crew of a merchant vessel captained by Joseph Foster. He sailed the Pacific and Atlantic with Captain Foster for a few years until the captain retired in 1860. Captain Foster had a farm in Leonidas and offered Felix a job as a farmhand, and he accepted, and so he moved to Michigan. On December 7th, 1863, he enlisted in Kalamazoo for 3 years of service in the 11th Michigan Volunteers. He Here he is pictured standing with his Springfield rifle. It's certainly one of the most unique stories, as it's not often that you hear of a Union soldier that came from the South Sea. After his enlistment, he took a train to Rossville, Georgia to join the 11th Regiment. Shortly after, the 11th was part of the 2nd Brigade that made the famous charge up Missionary Hill against the Confederate defense. The Confederates' fire poured down, and the only safe place was to go up the hill since the Confederates could not point their cannons downward. The 11th eventually reached the summit and drove the Confederates away and achieved a great victory for the campaign. Following that engagement, they fought in Atlanta, and then the 11th also fought in numerous campaigns, including the Battle of New Hope Church, Peachtree Creek, and the infamous Kennesaw Mountain. Felix Balderi was sent to the hospital in June of 1864. He was wounded during the siege of Atlanta. He was discharged later that September and returned home to Michigan. In September 1885, he married 16-year-old Ada Mae Barnes at Constantine, Michigan. Balderi himself passed away in August 1895 of tuberculosis at the age of 49. Another fascinating grave is that of Mark Watkins near the front entrance to the cemetery. I was not able to find much about his life here in Michigan, but it is engraved permanently on his monument that he was a Revolutionary War soldier. He passed away in 1836 at the age of 72, just 5 years after the formation of the village of Leonidas. His headstone is one of the oldest markers in the cemetery. Another interesting story is that of Maurice Henry Bowman. He was born in 1894, and in 1916, at the age of 22, he served in the U.S. Navy submarine service during World War I, and he served until 1919. It's not often that you come across a submariner from World War I, and I was fascinated to look into the types of submarines that were used during this era. Here's an example of one from the U.S. Navy Historical Site of the USS K-2 class submarine, which was common and in operation during the time that he served. Sadly, he passed away in 1924 at the young age of 30, following a year-long illness, leaving behind his wife and a young daughter. Usually, when trying to research the life of an individual, one spends a lot of time looking through old newspapers, obituaries, and a whole host of other historical resources to try to piece together the person's story. Imagine my surprise when I discovered I didn't need to do this with this next marker, because his entire story was written right on the monument. Let's take a look at the grave of Raymond Earl Hacker. He was a Korean War veteran who never married, but had his story engraved on this most interesting monument after passing away in 2009 at the age of 83. I'm going to read what he wrote. I was born on June 12, 1925. I entered into World War II and the Korean conflict. I was a private first class. I served in Japan under Generals MacArthur, Bradley, and Eisenhower. I was 25 years old. When I returned home, I took a vacation for a year. I went to California and Montana. A rolling stone doesn't gather no moss. No steady job. Then I got to working. 12 to 14-hour days on a ranch in Montana running cattle, working as a ranch hand. I was the guy that did work other people couldn't do. Blacksmith, shoeing horses, vet work, cutting testicles off bulls, shearing sheep. That's a back-breaking job. 100 a day. I didn't tie the wool. I had someone else do that. Then I went to Oregon. There I worked the lumber mill. That's dangerous, heavy work. I came back to Michigan and worked the sawmill. I learned the well drilling trade. I started farming with my dad. If I wrote a book, it would have been over 6 inches thick with over 3,000 pages. I'm not going to write no book. It's already been written. There is nothing I haven't done. Raymond Hacker. I don't know about you, but I was moved beyond words after reading this. I was also kind of impressed that he was bold enough to engrave the words testicles on his own monument. How often do you see that? but somehow he pulls it off. Oh man, I can't believe I just said that. And his name is Hacker too. I better move on. Our next story is that of Andrew Graham, who was born in the town of Italy in Yates County, New York, on February 10th, 1828. He came to Michigan in 1855 and worked his trade as a carpenter and joiner, and later engaged in farming. He married Helen Wilcox in 1856, and together they had 4 children. He was a respected citizen of Leonidas and passed away in November 1888. Nelson Spalsbury was also from New York, having been born in the town of Pemulia in Jefferson County. He came to Michigan in 1863 and was a resident of this community the rest of his life. He was involved in the mercantile and drug business in the village for over 30 years. He was married twice over the years. His first wife, Sarah, passed away in 1868, and his second wife, Cora, who died in 1889. He had 2 daughters, and through his years living in the village, he held many positions of trust in the community and was considered a well-respected and kind neighbor and citizen. Nelson passed away in 1898 at the age of 68. Before I move on to the 2 final stories I'm featuring in this video, I wanted to show some very interesting monuments at this cemetery that I was not able to find much information about, but I thought worthy of sharing. Before I show you these, I wanted to let you know if you want to support my channel, you can make a direct or reoccurring donations through my LibrePay account in the link in the description of this video below, or you can shop my merchandise store and get some cool original designs like my newest design, Explore Michigan, Explore History, which is really one of my favorites. Use the discount code HISTORY and receive an extra 10% off any purchase through the end of December 2021. Now let's look at these markers. Here is one for the Clement family, which is a very interesting arch. Here is one for the Ramsdale family, which is much taller and a lot more ornate. And here is the marker for Abraham Longenecker. He was a member of a prominent family in the village for many years, and there's a block in the village of Leonidas which is named the Longenecker block. And here's his photo. Here is also a photo of Myrtle Longenecker, another member of that same family. Here's a headstone that reads Dean on it. When they placed the marker, they apparently planted these 2 trees beside it. There was no information on this one in Find a Grave or any place that I could discover. Here's a very interesting marker for Lydia Beard. Notice the etchings on it, and here is her photo. Finally, a very curious marker for Leverett Beard, which I inadvertently discovered it cast a very disturbing shadow. Do you see something there? Somebody had some poor planning with this design. Maurice Gortler was born in Leonidas and was a lifelong resident, graduating from Colon High School. He was a farmer and worked briefly with the Haas Corporation in Mendon. He was known locally as a musician, playing alongside local artists such as Salty Klein, Bobby Hankins, and the band The Country Favorites at local events. Engraved on his headstone are musical bars with the words Down Yonder on it, and also an upright piano on the backside. He passed away in November 1989 at the age of 64. This final story, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, was a cast member in the famous Harry Potter franchise of films. However, he was best known for another film franchise that was a huge success during the 1990s and early 2000s. That was the Austin Powers film series. Vern Troyer saw the first light of day on January 1st, 1969 in Sturgis, Michigan. He was born with a genetic disorder known as achondroplasia dwarfism. He began his Hollywood career in 1994 as a stunt double in the film Baby's Day Out. He landed his first acting role in the 1996 film Pinocchio's Revenge. Prior to his breakout role as Mini-Me in the 1999 film Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, he played roles in movies such as Jingle All the Way, Men in Black, Wishmaster, Rocket Man, My Giant, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Mighty Joe Young.
Following the first Austin Powers film, he played a role in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey, before landing a role as Griphook in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, although the voice of Griphook was performed by Warwick Davis. This was the only Harry Potter film he appeared in. He reprised his role as Mini-Me in the third Austin Powers film, Goldmember. Some of his other film credits include Pauly Shore is Dead, Postal, The Love Guru, College, and The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. He also played himself in many different TV shows from 2000 through 2017, including appearances on Celebrity Juice, Celebrity Big Brother, Whose Line Is It Anyway, and The Trailer Park Boys. He also appeared in music videos with Madonna and Ludacris, and also Moby. Additionally, he had appearances in TV shows such as Shasta McNasty, Jack of All Trades, Boston Public, and Scrubs. In his early life in Sturgis, he was initially raised Amish, but his parents left the faith when he was a child. During his childhood, he spent time on a farm, and he also spent a lot of time visiting Amish farms in Centerville, Michigan. He graduated from Centerville High School in 1987, and there was a plaque dedicated to honor him at the high school in 2003. Growing up, he always said his parents never treated him any differently than his average-sized siblings, having to carry wood, feed the cows, and feed the farm animals. His film career began when a former president of the organization Little People of America contacted him about the role in Baby's Day Out. An interesting story about his first Austin Powers film, co-creator Mike Myers was so impressed with Troyer's performance after their first meeting that he rewrote the script to give Mini-Me more screen time and even removed from the script the character's death. Vern Troyer's life as an actor, stunt performer, and comedian warmed him in the hearts of his film viewers and created his own special fan base for his iconic roles. Sadly, he passed away in 2018. Vern Troyer struggled with alcoholism for many years, and he passed away from alcohol poisoning. His headstone marker bears his classic grin as he wears a tuxedo with an expression on his face that says, "Laugh with me one more time."
Well, that's going to do it for this tour through the Leonidas Cemetery and some of the history of this place. I hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you liked today's video, please take a minute, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought, and share the video with others. Because hey, who doesn't like Harry Potter? So until next time, thanks for watching.